Hello there fellow acolytes of the Sega Saturn, and welcome to another Saturn Gems video. The series where we look at a variety of different gems for the system, including hidden gems, well-known gems, expensive games, cheap games, imports and local games. Hopefully there's something here for everyone. Okay, so let's start off with our first pick, and it's Die Hard Trilogy. Die Hard Trilogy is less of a game and more a collection of 3 games. First I'll start off with the game based on the original film. I'm not going to cover it in depth because honestly I think it lets the collection down. The game based on the first film is more of an action kind of game. You control John McClane in a third-person perspective, you shoot enemies, and you rescue hostages for points. At the end, after you've killed all the enemies, you then have to run to the lift to defuse the bomb. The problem is the controls are pretty shit, and the levels are maze-like and kind of the same, and the game kind of never really goes anywhere. Each level is just more of the same until you reach the last level. And the last level doesn't even have a climax, it just finishes. So yeah, this game isn't on the list because of the first entry in this collection. The reason why it's on the list is because of the other 2 games. Die Harder is a light gun game, much in the vein of something like Virtual Cop. You control John McClane and you go through a variety of different levels, mainly themed around an airport, like the film, and you shoot guys. The game actually has quite a nice variety of levels too. You start from an airport, but then you move to tunnels and one exciting level on a runway where you fight on top of a plane and everything. There's another level where you're on a snowmobile and you're fighting, which is kind of intense, and it all leads up to a climactic final fight, which I'm not going to spoil by showing any footage. So I'm just going to show you the first level in the gameplay. You can collect a variety of different weapons. My favourite is the explosive shotgun, but it also contains a variety of machine guns, rocket launchers, grenades, things like that. It's actually a complete blast to play. It supports the Saturn light gun too, so if you have one of those and an old school television, it's a lot of fun. A problem with the game, and one that actually affects all the games in the trilogy, is it does suffer from unfortunate slowdown. Slowdown can make some of your aiming a little imprecise, but to be honest, I find that aiming's not too much of an issue. The other issue with aiming as well with the light gun is that there's no calibration for the gun, so you can't set it how you want it. You just kind of have to hope that the default settings are okay for you. Thankfully, they were fine for me, and hopefully they're okay for you. But I can imagine maybe some people have issues with that. The final game in the trilogy is based on Die Hard with a Vengeance. You and Samuel L. Jackson's character, who I've forgotten the name of, drive around in a variety of different locations, from Central Park to Chinatown to tunnels, and you have to defuse bombs. The bombs may be in telephone boxes, they may be people carrying bombs, which is kind of cool, or they may be bomb cars, where you have to chase down and ram this vehicle till it explodes. And that's what you have to do with all the bombs. So whether it's a person or a telephone box, you just ram into it with your car to defuse it. You have a cursor on the screen that will direct you to your objective, and you have a time limit to reach there. It's sort of like Crazy Taxi in a way, but not quite. But it is really, really good fun. The game is played from a first person perspective as well, which is weird and takes some getting used to, but honestly it kind of makes it feel a lot more frantic and a lot more exciting that way, especially since when you hit pedestrians you can see the windscreen wipers go backwards and forwards, cleaning the blood off the car. The good thing is, if you hit pedestrians, it doesn't actually do anything. It gives you a point penalty, but otherwise John McClane just says whoops and the game carries on. With the third game, I'm not entirely sure whether I think I like it more than the second or not. The second is a whole lot of fun, and the third is really, really good fun to play. But the problem with the third game is that it is pretty damn hard. That's the only one of the trilogy that I've not quite completed yet, but it's still really, really good. Overall, the package is a good value package. The game is a budget title, so you can pick it up for maybe 5-10 quid, and 2 of the 3 games are damn worthwhile.
I'm Craig Stadler. It's a great day for golf, and there's no place like Pebble Beach.
The next game on my list is Pebble Beach Golf Links. Pebble Beach is an interesting title. It's a golf game that uses digitized graphics and features the apparently famous Craig Stadler, who, even if you've never heard of him before, I'm sure that after you play the game, you will love him. Craig Stadler appears in the game, but he also pops up at the start of each course in order to give you an overview of the course and give you some tips on how to approach it. It's presented really well, and honestly it kind of makes the game really nice to play. The game is very relaxing and it's very intuitive to play. I'm not one for sports games, let alone golf games. The only golf game I enjoyed as a child was Putt and Putter, and I never really tried any since because they just didn't appeal to me. However, I picked up Pebble Beach Golf Links as part of a bundle, and honestly, it's pretty damn good. The game is really cheap, only a couple of quid, so if you're kind of vaguely interested, I would say pick it up. Maybe if you're a serious golf game fanatic, it may not be the best for you, but for me, as someone who doesn't particularly care for the genre, I had a fun time playing it. The game supports up to 6 players as well, if you happen to have the 6-player adapter. I've never even heard of the 6-player adapter, but if you happen to have it, then you can play this with up to 5 friends. The next game on my list is Super Adventure Rockman. Super Adventure Rockman is an interactive story. It was also Japanese exclusive, so don't expect anything to be in English. In the game, there are many cutscenes, and through the cutscenes, you either have quick time events like Dragon's Lair, you have a variety of different options to choose from to go down multiple paths, or more interestingly, you have first-person shooter segments, where you need to take down enemies or take down a boss. It's very different from a normal Rockman or Mega Man game in that there's absolutely no platforming whatsoever, and it's more story based more than anything. You can find translation guides online to help you through the story, but you don't really need it. You kind of get the gist of what's happening with the cutscenes, and then just take your pick really as to which option you want to go for. The animation is all really well done and looks beautiful and sounds really good as well. There's no bad voice acting, like the Japanese Rockman games, the voice acting tends to be rather good. As for the action, the first person shooting sections are actually quite fun. It works kind of like a light gun game, except it doesn't have any light gun support. And if there was any major gripe that I have, it's that really. If the game had light gun support, it would be really, really good. There is an animated cutscene that happens before a fight, so plugging the light gun into controller 2 and using that for the action sequences would have felt a whole lot better, but I enjoy the game quite a lot. It doesn't quite have as much depth as a normal Mega Man game, but honestly it's a nice diversion. The major sticking point is probably the price point. Whilst the game does have 3 discs which contain 3 separate interactive stories which culminate in an overall plot, the games are quite short and all in Japanese. Whilst it is an enjoyable experience, I would say this is more for avid Mega Man fans rather than any newcomers. The game is also reasonably expensive. It'll probably cost you maybe about 40 quid to pick up, which, considering it's mostly in Japanese and isn't particularly long, may be a high price point to pay. That said, it's great seeing the classic Mega Man enemies and the Mega Man world in this animated style, and it's a nice break from standard platforming of normal Mega Man games. Whilst it might not be a recommendation to everyone, I would say if you're happy with the price point and you want to give it a shot because you're a fan, maybe pick it up. The next game on the list is Discworld. Like with Super Adventure Rockman, this is more of an interactive story, and it follows the format of a point-and-click adventure, like Grim Fandango or the Monkey Island series, which you are probably more familiar with. This, however, is on our trusty Saturn. The controls work really well and do what they need to. Some of the button inputs don't seem as responsive or as intuitive as you would probably hope for, but it's not too bad, and controlling it using the Saturn pad is actually pretty good. As for the story itself, it's kind of based on Guards from the Discworld books with variation. How it portrays the world is also particularly good, and the voice acting is generally well done. The game fits the Ankh-Morpork feel well, although I don't think it's as gritty as it probably could be, like it is in Discworld Noir, which came at a later date, but unfortunately not on the Saturn. The dialogue is generally pretty good. There's some cringeworthy dialogue dialogue in there, and there's a running joke with the librarian where people say monkey and the librarian just appears that gets old pretty fast. It's funny the first time, but it gets old very fast, as I say. The other issue with the game as well is that some of the puzzles can be a little bit convoluted, which the game was particularly notorious for at the time. It's not quite as bad as most people make out, because with these kind of games the puzzles generally are pretty tough, and you find that you just kind of use all your items with everything in the world to find out the solution, which you can do to some extent in this without use of a guide. But I would also say that if you do feel the need to go to a guide to help you, it's not the end of the world, and I would probably recommend it. The game is enjoyable though, and it's something that I've been playing recently with my girlfriend, and we are both enjoying. It's definitely a worthwhile game to play, although the cost on the Saturn is kind of climbing a bit. It goes for around £30–40 these days, which for the type of game it is kind of expensive. But if you like the genre and you like Discworld and you like the Saturn, it's worthwhile picking up. Just one further thing to mention though about the game is if you do need the use of subtitles because you have a problem with your hearing or you're wanting subtitles for a different language, these subtitles are very bad. When the font is in purple in particular, it's very difficult to read, and even when it's not, you still kind of have to look close and strain to see it. It's unfortunate, and if you can't rely on solely the English voices to get by, it might prove to be a problem, but hopefully not so much. The final game is Dungeons & Dragons Collection. This is another multi-game collection. The collection consists of two titles, Tower of Doom and Shadow of the Mystara. Both of them are Capcom side-scrolling beat-em-ups, and they follow the same general format. You choose between a variety of different characters, all of which have different skills and attributes and have different spells. You work your way through the game as you would do with any normal beat-em-up. You can pick up items as well to assist you. You face bosses, but it also has access to a branching path system. Like with Guardian Heroes, for example. Of course, the problem with Dungeons & Dragons Collection is that the game was exclusively for the Japanese region. As such, seeing what these choices are is quite difficult. I think the branching paths option in a beat-em-up game like this, and like with Guardian Heroes, is definitely the best thing for the genre. These games are generally quite short, and it definitely adds an element of longevity to it, which is definitely needed. The games both control really well, although Shadow of Mystara does feel a lot tighter, but that was also a later arcade title, and you can tell that Capcom have used the time to refine the controls and refine the overall game mechanics. Item selection too is improved in Shadow of Mystara. In the first one, you just see the name of item in the bottom, and there is a colour that represents what type of item it is. You can use the colour to get the general gist of what kind of item you're going to use, but because there's no other visual representation, you find that you're just kind of selecting it and hoping for the best because the name's in Japanese. With Shadow of Mystara, the item selection is actually a picture, so you can see what it is you're actually picking. The mechanic of picking up items and using different items on the Seaborn is still the same essential principle, but it's just been refined a little bit more to make it seem a little bit more intuitive, and it also helps non-Japanese speakers too. As for the actual games itself, both games are really good. Shadow of Mystara is generally seen as the better one, but I don't think it's worth writing off Tower of Doom either. Tower of Doom, whilst it's not as refined as its sequel, it's still a fantastic game to play in multiplayer, which is the real strong point as well of the game. Because you can play this in 2-player, you can choose classes that support each other, and it's just a lot more fun to play. That's not to say single player isn't a load of fun, it is. It's just that when you play multiplayer, you really feel that the game is something special. The game goes for about 50 quid, but bear in mind you're picking up 2 games here for the price of 1, and both games are definitely quality. If you're a fan of beat-em-ups, I would say it's definitely worth picking up. The Saturn never really got a proper Golden Axe game, but honestly, Dungeons & Dragons kind of feels like the Golden Axe game that Sega fans should have received on the system. Definitely worthwhile picking up for anyone that loves the beat-em-up genre. So, there we have it. Those were the 5 games this time. We had Die Hard Trilogy, Pebble Beach Golf Links, Super Adventure Rockman, Discworld, and Dungeons & Dragons Collection, including Tower of Doom and Shadow of Mystara. So, have you played any of these games before? If so, what do you think of them? Drop a comment below and let me know. If you have any suggestions for other games that I should cover, again, leave a comment, let me know, might cover in the future. Okay, thanks all for watching. Bye.